In Part 10, we took a look at the events of Operation Javier, and now with the 11th part of our Resident Evil recap, we're turning our attention to RE4 Remake. Now before we begin, this video is based on our understanding of RE4 Remake's story and lore, and reflects our interpretation of its events as a refresher before Resident Evil Requiem. As always, we recommend that you make your own informed call by looking into the game yourself and ensuring that it matches your expectations, standards, and personal values. The setting. The game is set in the year 2004, 6 years after the total destruction of Raccoon City. And as you might imagine, a lot has happened in those 6 years. The most significant change is that Umbrella Corporation, which had consistently been the series' primary antagonist up to this point, is no more. Their corrupt activities and experiments became fully public, leading to the company becoming bankrupted and shut down, and its only living founder, Oswald E. Spencer, being declared a wanted man all over the world, following which he went into, and still remains in, hiding. So how exactly did that happen? Well, as things were unraveling over the years, it was clear that it was only a matter of time before Umbrella's activities became public. But one of the biggest killing blows for the company was dealt by Albert Wesker. Providing testimony as an anonymous, high-value witness, Wesker spilled the beans not only on the company's inner workings and on Spencer's role in all of it. But of course, he didn't do it out of the goodness of his heart. This is Wesker after all, which means he's always got his own suspect motivations. As we've already seen in Part 9 through the Umbrella Chronicles, Wesker was able to infiltrate an Umbrella facility that Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine also happened to be investigating at the time, and managed to recover a significant chunk of their files and data. His goal, of course, was to primarily use that data for himself in his world domination plans, but that also allowed him to blow the lid off of Umbrella's long-standing secrets. Leon Kennedy enters the scene. Moving away from Umbrella, the 6 years between the destruction of Raccoon City and the beginning of RE4 Remake's events also brought about major changes in the life of our protagonist, Leon S. Kennedy. When we last saw him, he was a rookie cop on the first day of his job and was trying to navigate the horrors of Raccoon City. But by 2004, he had turned into a highly trained super agent for the United States government after undergoing rigorous training in a top-secret program. As part of that training in 2002, a couple of years before RE4 Remake's events, Leon and fellow super agent Jack Krauser were involved in a covert mission in South America called Operation Javier, which saw Krauser to go rogue and join forces with Wesker. We'll talk more about Krauser later though, because now it's time to get to RE4 Remake proper. On direct orders from the United States President himself, Leon finds himself traveling to a remote village in Spain. Why is that? Well, to rescue the president's daughter, Ashley Graham, who'd been kidnapped by a horrible cult and is now being held captive, according to the government's intel, in said Spanish village. A bit of backstory. Now let's pause and go over some backstory as we often do before we proceed with Leon's mission in Spain. Well, for starters, who are these people? Led by a man named Sadler, the cult has a weapon at its disposal, and that weapon, as is usually the case in Resident Evil universes, is a bioweapon. Specifically, it's an ancient parasitic organism, discovered by Sadler in a preserved state within amber, which can be used to infect people and then turn them into hideous, horrifying monstrosities that, crucially, can also be mind-controlled. Sadler's ultimate goal, like with most of the over-the-top and ridiculous villains, is world domination, which is why he now holds Ashley Graham captive, so that he can infect her with the organism and send her back to the United States, where she will in turn be able to infect her father, the president, thus allowing Sadler direct control over him. And as you would expect, he has plenty of people assisting him. For instance, there's the aforementioned Jack Krauser, who was the one who kidnapped Ashley and brought her to the village. But there are other forces at play as well, like good old Albert Wesker, who also wants to get his hands on this parasite as part of his nefarious plans. To do so, Wesker has sent in his own agents as well, which includes not only Krauser, but also none other than Ada Wong herself. Just as she was dispatched by Wesker to Raccoon City several years prior in order to retrieve a sample of the G-Virus, now she finds herself in Spain, where her ultimate goal is to retrieve a sample of the amber and take it back to Wesker. Ada plays a constant role throughout the events of RE4 Remake, with the Separate Ways DLC in particular focusing exclusively on her side of the story, which runs concurrent to Leon's. But for now, let's go ahead and get back to Leon, who quickly realizes upon his arrival in the village that things are going to be far more complicated than he expected. The entire village has essentially been overrun by an infection, with virtually all inhabitants having been turned into mind-controlled freaks and monsters. Meeting Luis. As Leon deals with the crazed villagers and begins his search for Ashley, he comes across someone who, like him, isn't infected yet. Luis Serra, a former Umbrella researcher who was eventually recruited by Sadler to work on the parasite, but now finds himself on the run from the cult. Though Luis is, at this point, by no means aligned with Sadler or Umbrella, what Leon doesn't know is that in his attempts to escape the cult, he also reached out to Wesker, promising him a sample of the amber in exchange for his safety, which is why Ada has been dispatched to the village. Leon and Luis's meeting is cut short when they're attacked by the village chief, Betorres Mendez, who also happens to be infected by the parasite. Leon loses consciousness and is infected by the parasite, and when he comes to, he finds that he and Luis are both together in captivity. With each other's help, they are able to escape, following which the two part ways again. But before they do, however, Luis tells Leon that Ashley is being moved to a specific location in the village, which Leon instantly makes a beeline for. Rescuing Ashley. Arriving at the location, Leon is able to rescue Ashley from a horde of infected villagers, only to learn that she, like him, has also been infected. Mendez, the village chief, gives pursuit, and ultimately Leon is forced to take him on in a desperate fight in an abandoned warehouse, where Leon is able to kill him. In the aftermath, he is told that a rescue chopper won't be able to land in the village due to poor weather conditions, which causes Leon and Ashley to proceed ahead. Later on, Leon crosses paths with Ada, 6 years after their first meeting in Raccoon City. The two continue to meet throughout the rest of the game, and though they continue to help each other as much as they can, Ada never reveals her true motivations and plans to Leon, playfully batting away his questions as he knows all too well that she has a habit of doing. Leon and Ashley then meet Ramon Salazar, who also happens to be loyal to Sadler, and orders his forces to capture Ashley again, which they succeed in doing. Leon continues onward, determined to rescue her once more, and he eventually crosses paths with Luis once more. Luis informs Leon that he knows how to help him and Ashley. If they can get to Luis's lab on a nearby island, they can perform a procedure that will remove the parasite from their bodies before they fully give in to its infection and fall under Sadler's control. An old face returns. With a plan in mind, Leon and Luis proceed forward, but it's not long before they're attacked by Jack Krauser, who stabs and kills Luis, and after a fight against Leon, retreats. Before dying, Luis hands Leon the keys to his lab, following which Leon fights his way to Salazar, who holds Ashley captive. But though Leon is able to fight and kill a heavily mutated Salazar, he doesn't do it in time, and is on scene to witness Krauser leaving for the island on a boat with Ashley in tow. With Ada's help, Leon chases after him in a separate boat. Soon, Leon arrives on the island, which is where the story comes to a close. One of several challenges Leon faces on the island is a final confrontation with Jack Krauser, who proves to be a predictably worthy adversary, not only because he is highly trained as a super soldier, but also because he is infected himself. Leon is able to overcome Krauser, however, and the fight ends with the latter's death. Leon soon meets back up with Ashley, and at long last, and with some help from Ada, he's able to successfully take her to Luis's lab and rid both her and himself of the infection. From that point forward in Leon's mind, it's clear what has to happen next. Sadler has to die. And as you would expect, that is exactly what the game's final act is. With Ada's help, Leon takes Sadler on and is ultimately able to defeat and kill him. But Ada, as you would expect, is not going to forget about her primary mission, as much as she doesn't want to see Leon killed. After Sadler's death, she reveals to Leon that she has succeeded in retrieving a sample of the amber and climbs aboard a helicopter, which she uses to escape the island, which, in true Resident Evil fashion, is on the verge of total destruction, with Sadler's facilities self-destructing. Leon, meanwhile, escapes with Ashley on a jet ski. The twist. In the game's final moments, we see Ada contacting Wesker while aboard the chopper. She finally asks him what he intends to do with the amber and what his ultimate plans are. And though he is far from forthcoming with the actual details, he does let her know that his plans are going to result in the deaths of billions of people, something that he takes no issue with whatsoever. Disgusted by Wesker's reckless disregard and horrified by his plans, Ada holds the chopper's pilot at gunpoint and tells him to change course. Where she's headed and what she intends to do with the Amber, now that she no longer intends to hand it off to Wesker, remains a mystery. But Wesker, to no one's surprise, always has fallback options up his sleeve. As revealed at the end of Separate Ways DLC, he's able to retrieve Krauser's infected corpse from the island. And that's our recap of RE4 Remake. When we return for part 12 of our recap, we'll be going over the events of Resident Evil Revelations, which is set between the events of RE4 Remake and RE5.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at Gaming Vault, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.